When I was 10 years old, I walked to my school, Jane Addams, which served as both an elementary and junior high school in the Detroit area. Since I was in elementary school, I encountered older kids in higher grades. Many days I saw two junior high aged girls smoking cigarettes. They stood on the corner where I crossed, dressed in black leather jackets, puffing away. On more than one occasion, some friends and I ran past them shouting, "Smoker butt, smoker butt, smoker butt." It's a little cringe. I never would have shouted anything without the false courage I gained from being with friends up to mischief. One morning, a few weeks later, I was waiting on the corner for the pedestrian signal to change so I could cross the street to the school. I saw the girls nearby. One approached me and got close. I remember she was wearing gold hoop earrings and eyeliner. And she said, "I just want to thank you. You're teasing. It made me stop smoking. Thank you." She turned and walked away. I remember this final encounter with the girl vividly, even though it was a lifetime ago. I recall my stomach fluttering as she approached me. I was scared I was about to get pounded, and ashamed that I had taunted her and her friend, and then shocked when she thanked me. Words, what we say and how we say them, can profoundly affect family members, friends, coworkers, and others with whom we interact. As my childhood story demonstrates, we might not immediately realize or ever know the full impact of what we say. Let's pause for a few moments. I invite you to gently reflect on the power of speech. Recall a moment when someone said something that truly helped, words that touched you deeply. Maybe these words changed your life in some way. You might think of them from time to time, and they bring you comfort and encouragement. Hear those words. If a memory of supportive and loving words does not come easily, there is nothing wrong. Instead, bring to mind some words you need to hear. Maybe, "I love you," "You belong," "You are important." Notice how these words are spoken, the tone, the intention, the respect, the love that flows from them. How does your body feel as you hear these words? Is there warmth, radiance, opening, or something else? Savor these loving words for a few moments. Slowly let go of this reflection and come back to the present moment, perhaps feeling replenished. We know mindful speech can do great good. It can inspire. It can ground us. It can help us feel whole. We only need to look at the realm of politics to see many examples of what unmindful speech sounds like and how it causes pain and division. The Apostle Paul said this about unmindful speech: "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it might be beneficial to those who listen." The Persian poet Rumi said, "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder." And Voltaire, a French Enlightenment era historian and philosopher, said, "The secret to being boring is to say everything." Mindfulness helps us bring awareness and compassion to our pain so it can heal. Paying attention to the present moment enables us to feel fully alive. We can bring mindfulness practice to our relationships and encounters with others in our daily lives. Speaking mindfully is a vital part of fostering healthy relationships. We know mindful speech when we hear it, because it's communication to the head and to the heart. Let's break down mindful speech by considering its elements. Mindful speech is kind, true and meaningful, necessary, timely, unifying. Kindness is part of mindful speech. By kind, I mean speech comes from a compassionate heart. It honors the suffering we notice in others. Kind speech wishes the best for the other person. I suspect that the words you remembered from the past, or the words you thought you needed to hear during the opening reflection, embodied kindness. Mindful speech is true and meaningful. Truthful speech comes from seeing things clearly as they really are. Disinformation is the opposite of true and meaningful speech. Mindful speech is necessary. Necessary speech is not filling silence. It is speech with intention. On meditation retreats, there are usually long periods of silence without speech of any kind. After some time in silence, I am always reminded how much speech is unnecessary. Mindful speech is timely. Timely speech is fresh but not impulsive. Words are spoken with sensitivity to the other person's readiness to hear. My family was not the type to say I love you. After marrying Nikki, I noticed how often and easily her family would say I love you to each other. I decided to start saying I love you to my parents. After a few awkward attempts, I realized that although my intention was genuine, I was just making my parents uncomfortable. So I stopped. Later in their lives, when the time was right, my parents initiated the I love yous. These exchanges were still a bit awkward, but there was enough openness to support saying those words. Mindful speech is unifying. Unifying speech builds relationships rather than causing division or ill will. Social media is filled with unmindful speech. In July of 2007, Matthias Mell, a psychology professor at the University of Arizona, published the results of his research on speech. Using digital recorders over 8 years, researchers tracked how many words hundreds of American and Mexican college students spoke across several days. The students carried voice-activated recorders during most of their waking hours. The study found that the students spoke about 16,000 words a day. It debunked the myth that women talk more than men. There was no significant difference in speech volume between men and women. 16,000 words a day. Without being hard on yourselves, in the last day, how many of your thousands of words were spoken mindfully? How often were you really listening? There is something else necessary for speech to be truly mindful. We have to listen. Speech and listening are. We all know we should listen well, but how do we become better listeners? I first heard a Zen framework about barriers to listening in Kate Johnson's excellent book, Radical Friendship. The framework is called the Four Cups. Each cup is an analogy for a quality of inattention that undermines deep listening. The first cup. Our cup is too full. When our cup is already full, even one more drop will cause it to spill over. This tendency to overlook details often happens when we feel we have already heard what the other person is saying. We are especially vulnerable to this kind of inattention with people we are close to, those we know well. In her later years, my mother repeated the same stories again and again. I now realize I sometimes tuned out because I already knew the punchline. I wish I had been more present. I wish I had listened with greater curiosity, maybe silently asking myself, how is Mom doing right now as she tells this story? The second cup. Our cup is dirty. When our cup is dirty, the quality of our attention diminishes due to anger, greed, or confusion. We become so absorbed in our own thoughts that our ability to listen is impaired. This kind of inattention includes biases and judgments that hinder our capacity to listen deeply. The third cup. Our cup is upside down. In this case, since the cup is upside down, nothing can get in. When our cup is upside down, we are not listening at all. Nobody's home. The fourth cup. Our cup has a hole in it. When our cup has a hole in it, we aren't giving our full attention. We miss or forget details because they leak out. Later, we have to ask the person to repeat things. This lack of attention happens when we're distracted, tired, or only partially present. Without listening, we don't know what the other person is feeling, what they are asking for, and whether they are ready to hear what we say. Unmindful speech usually manifests as interrupting, defending, or preparing our reply instead of hearing. Sometimes people don't need advice or correction. They need to be heard. It's natural to sometimes say things we regret or realize we're not listening deeply when someone else speaks. But recognizing when this happens is an important moment of mindfulness. It helps us return to our breath, giving us the space needed to respond with compassion, kind words, or attentive silence. When I was 10, I shouted words I barely understood, and to my surprise, a girl thanked me for them. With my mother, I sometimes stopped listening before she finished speaking. Now I see these moments as teachers. Words matter. Listening matters. And between speaking and listening, a whole relationship is born. The practice is very small. One breath before we speak, one breath while we listen.